Windows 1.0 was Microsoft's first attempt at a graphical user interface, and honestly, it looked like someone discovered colors for the first time and got way too excited. It wasn't even a real operating system, just a pretty face sitting on top of MSDOS, like makeup on a robot. You couldn't overlap windows because apparently multitasking was too advanced for 1985. Everything had to be tiled side by side, which meant your screen looked like a very organized filing cabinet. It came with revolutionary apps like Calculator, Calendar, and Notepad, which are basically the same apps we use today, except now they have dark mode. The whole thing required 256 kilobytes of RAM and 2 floppy disk drives. For comparison, a single iPhone photo today is bigger than the entire operating system. But hey, it was a start, and Microsoft was very proud of their digital rectangle manager. Windows 2.0 came out 2 years later and finally let you overlap windows. Groundbreaking stuff. This version also introduced the control panel, which is that place you visit once every 2 years when something breaks and Google tells you to. It also came with Excel and Word, which meant Microsoft could now charge you separately for the operating system and the software to actually do work on it. Smart business move, honestly. This version also had better graphics support, which meant games could finally look slightly less terrible. Windows 3.0 was the first version that didn't feel like a science experiment. It had Program Manager, File Manager, and actually looked like something a normal person might use. It sold 10 million copies, which in 1990 was basically going viral. Then came Windows 3.1, which added TrueType fonts so your documents could finally look professional instead of like a ransom note. It also introduced the iconic Solitaire and Minesweeper games, which probably wasted more office productivity hours than any virus ever could. This version also had sound support, meaning your computer could finally beep at you in stereo. Windows 95 was a big deal. Like, people waiting in lines at midnight level, big deal. It introduced the start button, which is ironic because pressing it was usually the first step to shutting down your computer. It had plug and play support, which theoretically meant you could just plug in a device and it would work. In reality, it meant you plugged in a device, waited 20 minutes, then manually installed drivers from a CD anyway. Windows 95 also introduced Internet Explorer, which would later become the browser everyone used to download better browsers. The whole thing required a massive 4 megabytes of RAM, which sounds cute now, but back then was considered excessive. Microsoft spent $300 million on marketing, including getting the Rolling Stones to license Start Me Up for commercials. So yeah, they really wanted you to upgrade. Windows 98 was basically Windows 95, but with better USB support and less crashing. Well, slightly less crashing. This version could finally read DVDs, which was perfect timing because everyone was buying DVD drives to watch The Matrix in stunning 480p. It also had better internet integration, meaning Internet Explorer was now even more deeply embedded into the system. This would later cause some legal problems for Microsoft, but in 1998, they were just happy people were using their browser to ask Jeeves questions. Windows ME, or Millennium Edition, was Microsoft's attempt to send us into the new millennium with style. Instead, it sent us into the new millennium with frequent crashes and corrupted files. This version was so unstable that it became a meme before memes were really a thing. It was so bad that people willingly downgraded back to Windows 98. Microsoft itself pretended this version never existed. While regular consumers were suffering through Windows ME, business users got Windows 2000, which was actually stable and reliable. It was based on Windows NT technology, which made it way more secure and professional. Windows 2000 could handle multiple processors. It was basically everything Windows ME should have been, but Microsoft decided businesses deserved nice things and home users deserved chaos. IT departments loved it because it didn't make them want to quit their jobs daily. Windows XP is the version everyone remembers fondly, probably because of Stockholm Syndrome. That startup sound? Iconic. That Green Hill wallpaper? Legendary. The fact that people used it for 13 years? Slightly concerning. XP introduced the Luna interface with its blue and green color scheme that screamed early 2000s. This version also introduced product activation, which was Microsoft's way of making sure you weren't sharing your copy with all your friends. It had System Restore that actually worked most of the time, and Windows Movie Maker that was slightly less terrible. XP was so beloved that when Microsoft tried to kill it in 2014, some businesses and users refused to upgrade. Even today, you can still find XP running on random ATMs and hospital equipment, which is either nostalgic or terrifying depending on your perspective. Vista was Microsoft's attempt to make Windows look pretty and modern. Instead, they made it slow, incompatible, and annoying. It required way more powerful hardware than XP, which meant your perfectly good computer suddenly felt ancient. The Arrow interface looked cool with its transparent windows and fancy animations, but it also ate resources like a hungry hippo. User account control constantly asked for permission to do literally anything. Want to delete a file? Permission. Want to open a program? Permission. Want to breathe? Permission. Vista also introduced features like Windows Defender and improved search functionality, which were actually useful. But nobody cared because they were too busy waiting for their computer to stop thinking. So yeah, It was basically Windows ME's spiritual successor. Windows 7 was Microsoft's apology letter for Vista. It took everything Vista tried to do, made it actually work. It was faster, more stable, and didn't treat users like criminals every time they clicked something. The taskbar got redesigned with better window previews and jump lists. Arrow Snap let you drag windows to screen edges to resize them automatically, which was weirdly satisfying. Windows 7 had excellent driver support, ran games smoothly, and just worked without drama. It became the new XP, meaning people loved it so much they refused to upgrade for years. Even after Windows 10 came out, millions of users stuck with Windows 7 because if it ain't broke, why fix it? The only real downside was that Microsoft charged way too much for different versions. It was like buying a car where heated seats cost extra. Windows 8 was Microsoft's midlife crisis, where they decided computers should work like tablets. They removed the Start button, introduced full screen apps, and created an interface that made sense on a touchscreen, but was absolutely terrible with a mouse and keyboard. The whole thing felt like Microsoft looked at iPads, missed the point entirely, and decided that what PC users really wanted was a touch interface on devices without touchscreens. Windows 8.1 tried to fix some complaints by bringing back a Start button, but it still opened the Start screen, so it was basically a fake button that trolled users. Windows 10 was Microsoft admitting they messed up with Windows 8 and trying to win everyone back. The Start menu returned, combining the old menu with tiles nobody asked for, but at least you could remove them. It introduced Cortana, a voice assistant that Microsoft desperately wanted you to use, but you probably ignored completely. This version also brought forced updates, which meant your computer would restart in the middle of work whether you liked it or not. Windows 10 introduced a bunch of useful features like virtual desktops, better multi-monitor support, and Xbox integration for gaming. Edge browser replaced Internet Explorer, which was an improvement, though most people still downloaded Chrome immediately. Windows 11 is the current version, and it's basically Windows 10, but with rounded corners and a centered taskbar. Microsoft says it's more modern and secure, which is code for we redesign things you were already used to. It requires TPM 2.0 and specific hardware, which locked out millions of perfectly good computers. The new design looks clean but removed features people like, such as moving the taskbar to different screen edges. The new Start menu is cleaner but less functional.